thing is getting the, the rhythm or getting the meter right in the thing, particularly across all the syllables of the two measures,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of repeat themselves. Anyway, okay, let's see if we can.
And pretty slow then. Take it slower than you maybe usually do, if you can.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
Okay, okay. So okay. Well, anyway,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, a couple little things. The when you go to the D chord, let me start it. Put the D on. Yeah, and so as you run through that whole two measures of D once, the last thing is a pull off, right? Before or the second to last thing. Then you still have a couple more notes to play, right?
yeah,
Do that one more time. Let me hear that again.
okay.
There you go. Okay, good. Yeah, I just want to make sure. I wasn't 100% sure if you were getting the timing right at the end, but it sounds like you are. And so, what you're listening for in there is this ascent and descent of that little scale. Those four bass notes, and then the next time around, we've got the pull off at the end, right? And I think once or twice when after you did the pull off and played the last two notes, you might have used your thumb to play the last finger note, and that would have made it come out. That might only happen once, and it might not have happened at all. I wasn't 100% sure, but it sounded like once in a while the timing got hung up a little bit there. But right there, it was exactly right. Right, so it should sound like this. And then I got down to the G and the bass. Okay, so that's how you're hearing it should go, right?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing, a bigger thing, but is that so the G one has the pull off every time. Oh no, it has the pull off. Yeah, the pull off at the end of the two measures of G. It happens every time, right? But then the measure of G that goes to D has the hammer on after the pull off.
Right.
Right. Okay. So the the big thing here is that G that you play in the bass has to stay on while you do all that other stuff. So that bass note has to keep ringing.
Okay.
You've been letting go of it as you started doing the notes up and down the fourth string.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So try that.
Okay.
Right. It's going to make it a little more difficult.
That's
Perfect. That's it. That okay. So that's yeah. And actually, as I think about that, it might not make it more difficult. It might make it easier because you always had to like reset that G when you got into the next measure and like find it. So it actually gives you kind of a good anchor or base for moving these things around.
yeah.
You might have noticed at first this felt a little awkward getting your fourth finger there, but like by the second or third time, it's like
Yeah, that's where it goes.
yeah.
The thing that is least intuitive in that whole sequence on the D actually is the where we're coming into the D and it's
You're a fret too high. Yeah.
okay, it's that. So in effect, in my mind, I'm going backwards for some reason. I'm thinking because this finger has to
Ah,
sit behind here,
yeah.
it feels like it's going backwards. Okay, Mr.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good though. Yeah, no, I think you're doing everything right. Just got to get it to where it feels easier, so it doesn't take as much like brain power and stuff.
right. So,
but yeah, you're doing all the moves are looking good.
okay, I'm gonna, I'm sort of gonna move to the chorus here after that's the plan here.
Okay, so a couple things about the chorus. It starts on E minor, right?
Yep.
And I would usually play that E minor with only one finger, only my second finger on the fourth string. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of a real standard way of playing E minor when you're finger picking. It's like spare the fingers, you don't waste a finger on a string you're not going to play.
Okay.
And it's kind of the same philosophy we had with our G chord. We're not playing the fifth string, normally on a G chord you got to have, if you're strumming it, you need the second fret of the fifth string. We need that B on there, right? But as in a finger picking thing, there's never a reason for it to be there. And obviously in the little riff that we're playing here, you got to use those fingers anyway.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and of course, it's here.
Yeah. Now, that's not really, it's not too crucial on E minor because E minor is an easy enough chord to play, but it's one of those things sometimes just getting in the habit of rethinking how you play certain chords because of specifically what's going on in a song,
Right.
And this is more important if you were playing like an F chord. Put an F on for a second, a whole barred F. Yeah. In most finger picking matter of fact, 95% of the time in a finger picking thing on this chord, same deal. You're not going to play the fifth string. So now it doesn't. Yeah. So it's like, but then you might look at that and say, well, what good is it to have that finger off? What else is it going to do?
Right.
Nothing. What is good to do is use that finger for your fourth finger so that your fourth finger is free. Now you have a lot of useful things you can do. Now your fourth finger can play all kinds of melody notes up there. Oh, and didn't we do that in? We looked at Grandfather's Clock, didn't we, or not?
We did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was how I would have. That's how we have to play the F in grandfather's clock because we do have a note you have to play with your fourth finger.
Right. That's
Remember
right.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So as we get more into finger picking songs and things, you'd want that to be the standard way you'd play F
Okay.
because to not waste a finger on the fifth string.
Okay. So the concept being, you don't need to finger a string you're not going to play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so what happens, as we get into more and more complicated finger picking things, you need those extra fingers because we're going to be adding in melody notes to stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
so
Okay. Okay.
so the patterns. So have you looked at the chorus at all yet
I
with this?
looked at it, but and I looked at it a little bit last week, but I haven't
So
gotten it.
the the E minor measures are all the same. It's four measures of E minor, and it's just a constant alternating pattern where there are no pinches.
Uh-huh.
So all you got to do is keep your thumb and two fingers rolling.
So, okay.
Yeah. So that pattern, you want to get that to where you can do that like without even thinking about it and just keep that you've just this motion of thumb finger, I mean alternating a thumb and a finger, and your thumb's of course alternating on two different strings, and then your fingers are alternating when they play. So in this particular case, we're going with this finger first and then index first and then middle. So it's always this. I mean, you could practice this on a table, in terms of just that motion. Yeah.
Uh,
So that's kind of and then as the rest of that chorus plays out, I get a little bit. There's more like specific things that are a little bit different. Like when it goes to the G, the line with G starts with something similar, but it doesn't play an and on the first one, right? It's two bass notes. Yeah. Yeah, once you put that high G on, leave it on the whole time. Yeah. So
okay.
that's just another couple examples of really common finger picking patterns, where the second measure, the one that has a pinch on the first beat, but the first measure doesn't. Right, the first measure just has the bass note played alone, and
Yeah.
the reason a lot of people unconsciously do that is because it's if you only play a bass note on the first beat, all you had to do was have that down. It's like you have plenty of time to build the chord and not worry about getting a pinch on the first beat with a finger that may be a little late getting there.
I see.
So it just anyway, that's a really good way to start a measure, but then start a chord change. But then as you get further into the line, now you could mix up the patterns. You could do different things. Like you could put a pinch on the second beat. I mean, what you could hit the first bass note alone, and then yeah, and generally any note you pinch it's usually going to be the first or the second string. You're rarely going to pinch the third string at the beginning of a measure. It's like we want to hear the extremes. We want to hear the highest and higher notes, and then the middle string, the G string, is usually like the first thing you'd alternate to just bring in an extra sound of the chord. So anyway, so generally a pinch in a pinch is usually going to be the top string or the second string, or all of them. Now I would do that generally only on the second beat, so that I'm not going to try to pinch the whole chord on the first beat, so it'd be something like this. 1, 2, and on beat 2 I'm grabbing everything,
Right.
and then just alternating a couple of notes after that for 3 and 4.
Yeah, but that, let's see, on the second one, if you pinch on the second one, the bass is down here,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's kind of one of the main sort of strategies, I guess, with when you're finger picking a chord or a song. In every measure, you want to make sure you hear every note of the chord, every one of the 3 high strings, somewhere in the pattern. Um,
right,
and by pinching the whole thing on the second beat, it's like mission accomplished now. Now we've heard the chord. So you don't even have to do anything else, you know? So
yeah,
those other ones are just kind of in there as filler to add a little texture after that, you know? So we talk about finger picking patterns, you know, and there are books that would say here's 512 different finger picking patterns, and that's just it's kind of like they're all based on the same idea of really just keeping the bass note alternating and putting in fingers wherever you feel like it, kind of, you know. But we get to that by working on a couple specific patterns, so that if once you've done a bunch of these, if I just did something and say, hey, do this, you'd have to like decipher what it was and say, oh, I heard a pinch on the third beat or something like that, because the real path in finger picking patterns is to stop thinking about patterns. It's to just keep going and hit notes when it seems right to hit the notes, right? But that's kind of a vague instruction. It's like you got to have a little better foundation first by working on some specific patterns, and one of the biggest thing is just getting used to where your thumb can just keep going back and forth like this, and then your fingers can do anything. You noticed as you were trying to do this pattern a little bit, sometimes your thumb wanted to double up. You wanted to like hurry to the next bass note, right? And that's what the kind of the anyway, you want to get to where it's completely natural to never do that. To where your thumb is just tapping like your foot, but this complete independent control over all these digits it takes a while,
okay.
Yeah.
And so it goes in this one, after the G, we go to an A, and
Yeah, and I've got some trickier patterns on the A now. So that was sort of what happened here, is like each line got a little more complicated.
right. So it looks like it's 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Oh, the last one's a oh, that's
Right, so there's a pinch late, right, in the measure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So see, that's just kind of an example of the way you can mix and match these things.
Yeah.
I think the first measure just had 3 notes on the ands, right? Kind of like the first measure of G, except the first G only had 2 on the ands, I think.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and.
Yeah, yeah. And when we might have talked about this a little bit, but generally you only put a note on the and of 4 if it continues to ring into the next measure. Now, we have a lot of those in here, but there would never be one at the end of the last and of a chord just before a change,
Right.
unless now if it like at the end of the E minor line, there probably is a note on the and of 4 just before the G chord, right?
Yes, there is.
But that keeps my rule of that note's going to keep ringing when you go to a G chord,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you put a note on the and of 4 that you had a finger on that you then have to take off to go to the next chord, it's just going to sound like a mistake. You're going to hit it, then you're going to lose it right away. So
Right.
it's a blip.
Well,
So anyway,
yeah,
so
yeah.
basically the rules or the guidelines for finger picking are pretty simple. Your thumb plays 4 notes all on the beats, and then your fingers can play in any one of the 8 eighth note spots, 4 of which would be pinches, and the other 4 would be the ands. and then on any number of those spots, you could put any one, two, or even three fingers. So there's a finite number of how many of these exist, except there's enough variety because even with the exact same rhythm, by changing what strings you play, it sounds different.
Yeah.
So I kind of categorize finger picking patterns by their rhythm more than specifically when you play each of these fingers. I don't really care when these fingers get played. It's where you put them. Like putting the pinch on beat 2 is like one big category. Putting the whole pinch on beat 1 is another one. Those two things sound completely different. Just because it's where you get the accent. You get accent on one if you play anyway. So it's just a couple of kind of overall guidelines to it, but the idea is really you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really helpful. Those guidelines are very helpful, actually. Um,
Good.
that
Yeah.
kind of explains a couple of things that don't don't just jump out at me here. And so then the last line in here.
Yeah.
Let's see. In the chorus of this song, so the last line in this song is when she gets to the vocal line. Over you, right?
I'm having trouble getting there myself.
Let's see. There ain't no summer cry.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, so she's still singing over that last
Yeah.
line when we're just grabbing the chords, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, so actually, yeah, there is no singing over this. She's hit the last word. Wasted all my what was that line?
Wasted all my time over you. Wasted all my
Over
night.
you. Yeah, yeah. And so the word you happens on that D chord. That all that other stuff, wasted all my time over. That's all on the A chord.
Right.
And then the word you is on the D. You. And there's a little fancy thing on the D, which I'll have to look at in just a second. But so those first three measures are you just hit a bass note and then pinch the rest of the chord on beat 2.
Right. Yeah.
But use your thumb, yeah, because on a D chord, yeah. See,
Yeah. Okay.
right. So you're gonna have to work a little bit on that technique of getting all three of those notes to sound even. Make sure that your thumb is outside of your yeah. You got to your fingers have to pull up inside your hand, inside your thumb like that. It can't be like this.
Yes.
Like if they're running into your thumb, they're not going to be able to play adjacent strings.
This is. This is.
Yeah, so that's one of the things to kind of look for is that right there. You probably can't see it very well, but look at right now your wrist looks like mine. Like it looks like this. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like this. See, if your wrist is coming in straight to the strings, your thumb and your index finger are going to run into each other.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Yeah. So you can see. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So is your index finger are you hearing that string pretty clearly? The second string? There. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when it goes to C, it's going to be the same thing, but all three fingers now. So you're going to hit the fifth string first, and then grab the other four strings.
Oh.
Yeah. So you got to use all three fingers and your thumb on that one, right?
Yeah.
Right. So even just practicing that technique to where that feels easy and that your thumb and index finger don't run into each other, you could do this. You could do this on open strings. You don't even have to have a chord on just to get the technique in your right hand.
Right.
Do that again. Go back to come from the C now to the B minor. Let me see you put that B minor on again. There, that's better.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. So the we've talked about like the bar chord technique of making sure you get the bar down first, and this picking pattern really uh, it takes advantage of that because you're going to hit the bass note first, and then you got to grab the rest of the chord on beat two, right? So make sure to isolate that move, like starting with your hand off or just starting on a C or something, and then
Yeah.
it's kind of like then go and it's like get this and get that. And if it didn't come out clear, do it again. It's like you got to do the whole move every time.
Okay.
Instead of just wrestling with it until it sounds good and then going on. Yeah. So you gotta be able to get that to happen in time, right? And now looking, so the last measure of D. Oh, so one more thing. So then this kind of relates to this the D measure that we're talking about. So don't forget that whenever we're on a D chord, we're going to be hitting the fourth and third strings with the thumb,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of times I'd even call that like D position, which basically means only two fingers, thumb and two fingers, right? And that's how we were doing the other part of the song, back the D chord and stuff in there. But there are other times when other times will come up where we do use the third string as a bass note, not necessarily even on a D chord, like on a C chord or something. And then you do the same thing. You go into a two finger mode. You get your third finger, put it back on the bench or something. And because, so whenever your thumb's coming to the third string, it's these two fingers
Right.
covering the other two.
Right.
That looks really good. And there's that. Yeah, I can see you're looking at your hand position there in the mirror, right, or in the computer. Yeah. So and then it should feel like it's pretty easy. Yeah, that's great. Like I like when I can see your thumb the whole time, even when you're playing the tip of your thumb, then I know you're like in good position.
Yeah.
And when it disappears, it's like, hey, Bill, turn your wrist a little bit or something.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
So try that measure. See if you can walk through that last measure of D because it has a little bit of moving with the left hand.
Okay. It's one, and then it's a pinch with these two actually. It's yeah. No, it's a two.
Those two there. Isn't that note on the first string open first?
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So you actually don't even put down the whole D chord yet. It's like you start with that finger off.
Okay.
Yeah. Wrong bass note, I think, at the end. I think your thumb didn't alternate. Yeah. And then again, I'm not sure if you did that. Don't forget, on your right hand, that should have just been these two fingers, right? Your third, I don't think.
It's,
Yeah, so you don't want to be using your ring
oh,
finger.
oh,
Right.
wait.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's okay.
Oh, wrong bass at the end. You just didn't alternate. Your thumb didn't get to the third string. But the timing is really good. Right. That's it.
So it's one, two, three, and four.
Right. So that last pinch is on four.
One, yeah, one, two, one,
Alternate. Last bass note again. But the timing is really good. Yeah.
one,
Yeah, except I think you used your second finger for the last tune. I think your second finger played the second string just before the last pinch. I'm not sure. Yeah. But that's all. That'll be easy stuff to work out. That was it. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So I think that's definitely a good project.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd. Yeah.
Boy, something just crossed my I forget why this came up, but it was just it related to not this album, but to the Wall. It must have been something about the like anniversary of the Wall or something of the Wall coming down like in the '90s or whatever that was or something.
Yeah, yeah,
And it made me think about this album, and it was kind of like a little culture shock that, oh my God, that album is 40 years old now. I mean, it came out in 1980, right? And I'm thinking, man, I would have bet it was like about 25 years ago, maybe, not 40. It's like, oh man. Anyway,
yeah. That's part of that culture shock. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and then of course, wish you were here was a couple of years, like about 76, I think, or
yeah.
70,
I think it's
70.
like 5 or 76. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, let's hear what you got.
Yeah. Let's see what I can remember here.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Um, First of all, that's really good. You got all the, you can hear the melody and all the timing, and all the strumming could be, um, the timing on the strumming was great. It doesn't have to be that exact strum every time. So if you can like loosen that up a little bit and not worry about like up, 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 down or whatever. I'll get more to that in just a second. But the biggest thing is when we start that first little melody starting on the G, bom, da da dum bum. This is going to seem odd because this is the exact opposite advice I just gave you in the other song. Get rid of that G. Don't let it stay on there. When you play the G and the bass, it's slightly compromising the hammer on from A to B just a little bit.
Okay.
Because and so just take it off completely. Then you're good, and then you're going to put it back on when let me think about this. Yeah, like not even here. That's when it goes back on. It's like when you finish the end of the second little run,
Okay.
because then you want to like strum everything after when the melody note is that D.
Yeah.
That's when we have to have then you want the rest of the chord back on so we can strum more of it.
Okay.
Good job too. Now when it gets to the A in the bass, you understand that this has to go back on because it's part of the strumming, and that always worked out great too. So you got all the moves are great in there. Yeah. Just let go of that G as you play that run, and don't put it back down until you finish the second run.
Okay. Okay.
Try that once. Now.
Now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Since you stopped there and you're waiting for some instruction, it's like that's the spot.
Okay. After the D, I was coming. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's about as far as I've got.
Wow, that's good though. Yeah. Um,
Oh, okay.
we'll talk about that just a little bit.
Okay.
Did you print that out?
I did print it out, but I
Okay,
haven't actually gone through it. I printed
that's
it
okay.
out.
I just want to make sure you had a hard copy
I
of it.
found that from your from the video.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a
yeah.
slide 2 to 4, right?
Yeah, yeah. We'll come back. Well, I'll talk about some of that in just a minute. I'll kind of walk through it. Because there's one more thing. Oh, um, really good job there when you finish that whole thing, and you keep the G strumming for a little bit. It's really a couple extra measures of G before they kick it into before the second time kicks in and the lead comes in, and you had that timed out exactly right. It's like it almost sounds like you'd been playing with the record, and and you knew exactly like when to start it again, because it can sometimes get a little disorienting in there. It's like because it's a lot of measures, right?
Okay.
Also, and the progression then once they start singing is very easy. Have you strummed through it and a little bit there?
I listened to it and I could. Okay. Let's see. Let me just think about that for a second.
It does start on C like you were about to. Yeah, yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
working yet.
That was
So
good. So you were kind of just earring that out, huh?
yeah, sort of C. Let's see. C.
Yeah. Oh, so if you're going to go into that part, make sure to play that last note with your first finger, so that you can keep the if you play that you landed on this G chord, right, and
Yeah.
then you started the little run, but make sure to use your first finger for that last note, because you got to be set up to do that chord again, the G chord, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about the lead a little bit, because it looks like you want to mess with that, and that's pretty
Yeah.
fun. So the first thing that happens is what you just did there. You slide from the A to the B, 2 to 4, and then and you let that ring. I mean, a really good thing to do as you work your way through this is have like the recording right there, so you can listen to like 4 seconds of what Gilmore plays, and then try to get that sound. But there's a whole bunch of little subtle things. One of them so that's the opening thing, the slide from A to B. Yeah, dude. Yeah, something else you did there that was really good that I always have to bring up when people are sliding. Small slides, like if you're going way up the neck, this is not. It's a different story. But a 2 fret slide is one where your thumb should not move. You just move your hand and get in position to where you can reach both of those notes. So your thumb could maybe be a little further up the neck. It could be like closer to the 3rd fret. Yeah, and but that also helps control how far you slide. Is that you're it's a small piece of mass here,
Right.
as opposed to a longer slide where you have to move your whole arm. Those are harder to stop, because you've got it's like if you had to slide to the 9th fret, you got to figure out a way to like stop at the ninth. But anyway, so shorter slides like this, one of the secrets is your thumb, you don't move your wrist,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first little move. And then I'd use my little finger for this. Because you need to add the note at the 5th fret, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like 3 quick notes. It goes from the Yeah. That's the next little snippet, right? Then we have a double pull off. So we have to change what finger. It's the next note is this note again, the B.
Yeah.
But you got to do it with your third finger, right? Because what you have to do here is a double pull off. So have your first finger on the A,
Yeah.
and then what you got to do is hit the B, pull it off to A, and then pull the A off. So it's a double pull off. Yeah, try to always think of a pull off as plucking the string with your left finger. Don't just take it off, yank it off. Like especially pull it down.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, am I hitting the B though with the
Yes, yeah, you're
okay.
definitely hitting the B.
Okay.
Ah, that was better. Do you hear it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So you have to think of it as plucking the string with your left hand,
Yeah.
not just getting it off fast.
Yep.
And now something that happened there, it's really important that you have this finger anchored before you start this. Like if you hit this and then try to get this down as you're pulling off to it, it's not going to work. So you got to have the receiving note of the pull off planted before
Okay.
you start the pull off.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And really good to practice it kind of slowly like that to make sure you hear that middle note. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it is pretty fast when it happens on there, but practice it slowly first because that middle note will disappear if you're not real careful about it.
Right.
So
Right.
when you hear it fast correctly, it'll sound like this. You clearly hear the middle note. If I don't hear it very well, it sounds like that. There was no middle note there.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, and that's the next note. You got it. Okay? So that's the first half of, there's like one more thing that happens here. A little slide from 1 to 2 on the 5th string. Yeah, and then a couple of Ds, open Ds. Yeah. So that's the whole. There are 4 of these. There are 4 like little phrases, right? That's the whole first one, I think. Let me think about that. Yeah. The next one, each one has its own little trickinesses, and the next one has. You're sliding. I don't know if have you looked at this one at all yet?
This one I know it starts here.
Yeah. Yeah. And the 3rd and 4th fingers like you had. And what you do is you hit it before you. Yeah. Let me think about this. You hit it at 3 and slide to 5, right?
Yeah.
Then you hit it at 5 again and slide back to 3. So it's 2 hits. Yeah. Now, so notice that a descending slide is a lot harder than an ascending one. Like you can hear the one going up sounded pretty good. The one going down has some work to do, right? And here's why. When you're sliding up to up to a note, the fret you're trying to get to basically is your stopping point, right?
Right.
When you're going backwards, you don't have a stopping point. You got to get just over the fret and stop. Right? Because if you go too far, it's going to die, right? So that's you might practice this with just one string at a time first to get the idea of just a descending slide. And you have to stay really good contact with the string. It sounds like sometimes when you're descending, you're lightening up a little bit so the note dies. Oh, hit it again. Yeah. That was better.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, to compound this issue, it's both notes, right? In the song, right?
Right.
But then the same thing happens. Leave your 3rd finger where it is right now, and bring your 1st finger in to the 2nd string. Right. That's the next slide. It's the same thing. Yeah, and there's a whole little. You'll have to look at you look at the music here when you get working on this,
Okay.
because there's like three or four of these in a row. Oh, I think that there's even like a double. Now those two get pulled off. The two that you just slid back down to. Yeah. Then and then it does it again with just a little slightly faster rhythm. Yeah.
Back to
So
here.
just have to look at the tab and kind of start scoping it out.
Okay.
But I think that should be kind of a fun little project for the week. Mess around with that a little bit, but listen to it a lot. Really try to listen to what Gilmore did, and really focused in on just like one phrase at a time, or even a half a phrase sometimes.
Okay. Okay.
Let me see what happens next. The next two phrases start very similar to the first one. That's the third one, more or less, and then the fourth one. Yeah, so there's a lot of. He's really good at. I don't know. The subtleties in his bends are pretty interesting. They're. I might have frozen up a little bit there. It looks like. But uh, anyway, so just mess with it as much as you can and see what you can come up with.
What is he sort of technically? What is he doing here? I mean, are we
Oh,
inside of a
yes.
chord or a? What are we doing?
Well, what key is this section of the song in? Do you think?
Section of the song.
Like with the introduction, like it basically is revolving around a couple of chords, right?
The introduction seems to be in G.
Right. So every note, everything he's playing here is right out of a G scale.
Okay.
Okay, so like even like here, these two notes, as you can see, are actually part of a D chord, the ones that we slid up here, and the first two are part of a G chord. That's just our notes. Those are just notes out of our G chord. The two up there. So every note he plays is right out of the G scale. He's got one little embellishment when he slides from B flat to B. But that's just like a decoration, right? We don't really hear that. We don't hear this note in there. We just heard the effect of sliding into a note, but everything's just out of a G scale.
Okay. And when you're sliding upward, so we're in the G scale and we're playing, and this thing comes out of the D and this comes out of the G. Um, and when you go up one position here, are you thinking about that as I'm moving up one position? How? I'm just trying to get the sort of the track of. Um,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess you really just think of it as it's a parallel move, meaning you've got two things moving in the same direction, and in this case, they're even in the same distance. Like I mean, we're just and so, but again, all of the notes are just notes out of the G major scale. It's here we've got a D and a G moving up to an E and an A, right? And most of the places where he comes to rest are notes that are in the G chord. These two notes are both out of a G chord. Now he has a quick note. The E is not. It's what we call non-harmonic, meaning it's not in the chord, but it's in the scale. But these two notes right here are right out of if you look at a barred G chord right here, there they are. That's where this comes from.
okay, that's my question actually. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
okay, so I have a fragment of the chord that I'm moving to.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. So all of these the opening to each phrase revolves around these two notes. That's it's like the opening to every one, or
Okay.
I guess not so much the second one. The second one, and it ends with either these two strings open. I'm not sure what I have in the tab. This is the end of the second phrase.
I,
I think he doesn't play them open. Is the last note at the fourth and fifth frets of the second phrase.
that's the first phrase. Yes.
Yeah, it's a 4 and 5.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's the same
yeah,
two notes. So see, these two strings open are also the fourth and fifth frets up here.
right.
And you could play them open, and the only reason I know he didn't is because you hear him slide up to them.
Ah,
So you hear that sounds clearly different than that. You
yeah,
know? So that's that whole second phrase is this. Ah,
okay.
so that's, I mean, these are fairly complicated subtleties that,
Yeah,
were effortless for him at the time, so
yeah,
uh, that's what you get from David Gilmour. So
yeah. There you go.
okay, well,
Okay.
that keep you busy for a week or two. Oh, you got plenty of. Oh, we won't do a lesson next week, I guess, unless you want to do Wednesday or Friday or anything.
Yeah, probably no, probably.
Okay, let's just skip the week
Yeah, yeah.
and then
Let's
pick up in December.
yeah, let's pick up in yeah. Well, that'll be December, won't it?
Yeah. So go ahead and obviously look up anything else you want to. It's like there's a ton of stuff at the site, of course, and but I like I think we'll get a lot out of Wish You Were Here. It's
Yeah. Okay.
fun.
Well, I think I'll be working on Wish You Were Here and the others, and who knows? I don't know if I'll add anything on here in the next couple of weeks or not, but
Well, that's okay. You got plenty of old stuff to work on too.
yeah. Oh yeah, I got tons of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
lots of times, you hear something, and it's like, oh, that's something I really like to see if that's possible for me to work on.